All right. G'day, everybody. There he is, having a smile. Please
Yeah.
meet your co-host, Michael Harris, and I am co-host Joel Sadler. Today, we're going to talk about consistency and turning up. Um,
We're going to
Mike's
talk
had
about
it.
much more than that, but it's because I'm not feeling well.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah, I was just going
essentially
to
it.
say it's because
Yeah.
Mike's not feeling well today, but we're going to push on through.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, we're big on, I suppose, practicing what we preach, although I don't like that sort of terminology, but just turning up and consistency and making sure that we honor ourselves and our listeners and our community. Um, yeah.
And
So
if I was too rinsed, I think I would definitely wouldn't be doing it. But I'm on that borderline of I think I may have had 3 or 4 hours sleep for whatever reason and
yeah,
just feeling very tired and cold.
cold.
Cold a little bit, yeah.
Mm.
It's what
Got a
happens when
good
you drop
jacket on
body
there.
fat too, yeah.
Yeah. What's your body fat sitting at the moment?
I don't know what it's sitting at, but it's the leanest I've been my
Yeah.
entire life, I think.
Wow.
So for being in my mid 40s and
Mm.
now being where I am, it's pretty epic actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you
Yeah.
definitely feel the cold a lot more. I used to sit around 95 to 96 kg.
Yeah.
Now, yesterday, actually, I've lost more than 8 kg. I was down at 86 and a half, which is the lightest I've
Mm.
been in ages.
God,
But I
that's a
tell you, I
lot.
used to run really hot.
Mm.
You just
Mm.
carry a bit more muscle, carry a bit more body fat. And then
Mm.
now I feel the cold way more, whereas I could just go outside easy,
Yeah.
never feel the cold. Now I
Yeah.
feel the cold. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
noticed it actually. You wear a lot more jackets than you used to wear. You used to rock a t-shirt everywhere kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's comfortable. I didn't mind it. Still do
Yeah.
my cold showers every morning, obviously, which is fine because
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
something I've been conditioned for. But I just definitely feel the cold a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh well, talking about consistency and turning up, obviously, um, there's a couple of things like we've spoken about recently and that, I've been working through as well, and you've been working through in different areas. And one of them was for me, um, getting involved more in like a community group and taking on a role of leadership in that group, and which entails a little bit of public speaking and facilitation and all that kind of thing.
yeah,
And I haven't done that for a while. I used to do quite a lot of that in the business world. Now I work for myself from home and still do a lot of meetings with people, but not necessarily in that sort of forum. So it's a bit of a challenge. But obviously, in order for me to turn up consistently and and fulfill that role, I had to feel that anxiety or feel those fears and still sort of push through it.
mm,
So I think, yeah, it's quite a powerful conversation for us to kick off on there. And then obviously, for example, rocking up here now and go, it's very easy for you just to go back to bed and
I
go,
was
okay,
bed just
well,
before we got I was
yeah,
back just
you,
before we got on
you
the
know what I
call. Yeah,
mean? But it's
yeah, yeah,
kind of I like that way that we talk about obviously exercising that muscle and building that
yeah,
muscle. And I think it's building that consistency, that determination, and sort of true masculinity. I mean, like, there's days I wake up and I feel like crap, literally, and
mm,
the little kids come running out, a 1 year old and a 4 year old, and just want to hang out with daddy. Sometimes the last thing I want to do is like do that. I just want to go and hide under a rock,
oh,
and just,
100%.
or go and sleep in until 11 o'clock
Yeah,
or whatever. But
yeah,
it's, that turning up. And I think a lot of men and women on this, listening would associate with that and do turn up in that space. And I think sometimes when there's like kids involved or family involved, it's so powerful because you just push through those feelings.
I want to give a shout
um
out to the mums actually. Just
yeah.
it's a generalization, but because you're going to have both sexes that tap out, people in both
Mm,
sexes at different times, and there's going to be
mm,
times you tap out, I tap out, and I certainly have.
yeah.
But I take my hat off to the mums who have a whole nother level of just
Oh
being able
yeah.
to shoulder responsibility. They just, I don't know, like I really, you just see what they handle sometimes, like when
Yeah.
with my ex, and when
Mm,
my son was younger, just the
mm,
amount that she took on, and
yeah.
it's just like just there all the time, just there
Yeah.
because they kind of had to be when they're breastfeeding and doing all that, but it's just constant, and it's just
Yeah.
you got to honor them for the fact that's built into them to just
Yeah.
be there and to be that rock.
Oh,
So yeah,
100%, man. Like,
yeah,
take my hat off to the mums. I sent my mum a message what did I send her? On Facebook Messenger, something along the lines of because my little boy is like just so active and like always on the go, and I said, "Oh, thank you for staying sane, raising me, mum. I can't get over how much energy my son has to burn all the time. Holy moly, like because I was the same apparently, just like
Yeah.
just an energizer bunny,
Fancy that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I think you probably were as well from what some of the stories you've shared with me.
It's
But
it's nice to have
mums
that
are just
gratitude, right? And pay that
yeah,
gratitude. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And my wife's just an absolute legend. With her ability to navigate and
Mm.
manage the kids and prioritize the kids, and it's just phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. So coming back to that. I think it's there's that book. Was it Feel the Fear but Do It Anyway, or that kind of thing? But also being comfortable with uncertainty, I think is a quite a. We had that conversation yesterday about actually strengthening the inner muscle or mind to be comfortable with uncertainty and
Yeah.
operate and perform in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often I know for a fact that I want to live in my comfort zone area
Mm.
and sort of maybe jump in and out of that uncertainty. But I think, what I'm learning is the world is um, seems to be getting more and more uncertain, and there's so much stuff happening around us that it's triggering people left, right, and center. And I've come from a space where I was sort of triggered left, right, and center, and also had a lot of those um, triggers from childhood, learnings and state being in a certain place in different states, that it's been nice to kind of strengthen that muscle to be able to deal with uncertainty. And then it's kind of like water off a duck's back. Like we spoke about um like working within a community of people, for example, how does a leader stay sane leading a community of people with so many different opinions and viewpoints and trigger points and all that sort of stuff. So do you want to mention a little bit about do you want to tell us about S.O.A.P and run us through S.O.A.P, for example? Like I found that quite a powerful exercise, particularly around heading into a certain scenario.
Let's segue back a little bit, because you unearthed quite a few pieces just now that my brain bookmarks. And so
Great.
if we go back to the start and you talk about
Yeah.
uncertainty first,
Yeah.
and the aversion for wanting to embrace uncertainty
Yeah.
is because we're all geared to stay safe. And so,
Yeah.
we're wired to keep ourselves safe and survive. And so when we feel like we're coming into uncertainty, it's uncertain. It's something we're stepping into, a realm we haven't been before, or into an experience we don't have experience on to draw upon to let us know that this is safe or we're going to be okay.
Yeah, right.
And so often people will default to wanting to withdraw from that in case it's a danger and it's going to threaten them. And so therefore you go back into that safety zone, that those patterns that you understand that are going to keep you safe, even if some of those patterns don't keep you safe. But you know them, right? Like they're familiar. Yeah. So it's like, oh yeah, I can handle this. I've been here before. So it's normal to kind of want to withdraw from those aspects and what we touched on yesterday. And one of the principles that I used to have when I was, when I first started public speaking and going from audience, and I remember I was shat myself when I first did talk. I think it was only in front of maybe 15 or 20 people, and I was fucking nervous. Yeah. And I was like, and I was thinking I was just doing a bloody intro or something, and I felt like I was choking myself to death. Yeah. Like someone had my throat and was choking me. Yeah. I was apologizing for how much I was stuttering. It felt like, So it's it's actually quite visceral going back there, because I remember it really well. Yeah. And, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's so bad. And I went from doing like 15 to 20 to then, groups of 30, 50, 60, 100, and then up to 2,000 people. And
awesome.
Every time I expanded, it was that I created an association and a new meaning and frame around what that meant. So when that trepidation and anxiety came up that you mentioned to me yesterday, that, you were going to go do that public speaking and so forth, and it's like that little bit of it's natural, right?
Yeah.
So again, when you feel that, and this is what you were alluding to before, it's like, well, fuck, of course you feel that. It's fucking natural. It's normal to feel that. Like you're going into something where you potentially feel like you're going to be in danger and you're not sure what's going to happen. And so with S.O.A.P, which I don't know if we've talked about before, but it's a great acronym to allow yourself to actually go through the motions of letting that feeling come up and through, and then releasing the feeling rather than trying to repress it and hold it in and letting it run you.
Yeah.
So S.O.A.P stands for it's safe to feel. So it's safe for me to feel whatever I'm feeling. It's okay for me to feel this.
Yeah.
I'm going to allow myself to feel what I'm feeling right now. And I give myself permission to feel this. And so then you're not gaslighting yourself, trying to go, I shouldn't be, because this is what I used to do too some of the times. Like I'd get in my head, oh, why am I feeling this way? Oh, shit, I shouldn't be feeling this way. What's wrong with me? Oh, shit. And then you make yourself more anxious and you go in a downward spiral.
It's just a downward spiral.
Yeah,
because you start beating yourself up and going. And then for me, I'd sort of question, well, am I the right person for the job?
Yeah.
Why?
You get into all that inner critic, all those old programs,
the inner critic
all those old beliefs.
It just snowballs.
Yeah. Whereas when you actually go, hang on a second, why does it make sense? Why does it make sense that I'm feeling this way right now? Oh, fuck, I'm about to go speak to a whole bunch of people I don't know. And like, I'm going to be judged and I might muck up or this might happen. Of course it makes sense I feel this way. And when you can come from a place of that and give yourself some understanding, you have a whole new level of empathy and compassion for yourself for what's going on. And then you run through S.O.A.P and you allow yourself to feel it and acknowledge it, give yourself some empathy and compassion, and then you can move forward. So it's like, regulating yourself, regulating your nervous system when that comes up. And it's normal for this shit to come up. We're human beings. And we're wired to be like keep ourselves safe and avoid predators, avoid being consumed. So this stuff's going to happen.
Oh, definitely. And for, for listeners that are thinking of deploying S.O.A.P, like in my personal experience, I found it extremely liberating because then I could, like, it's kind of, I find these pieces sort of like once I allow myself to feel that and go, it's okay to feel that, obviously, and acknowledge that, it kind of almost sort of chops it off at the knees. Like it kind of just takes the power out of that negative space or that headspace around it. And then I actually went to that meeting really excited. Like I remember driving there thinking, actually, I'm excited about this meeting and I'm looking forward to the people I'm going to talk to and the conversation, as opposed to like, oh, crap, I don't really want to go. And like, oh, am I doing the right thing? And I remember in previous situations really having that come up for me, and actually to the point where I, would almost turn the car around and go, screw this, I'm out here. Like that fight or flight thing would really rear up,
Yeah.
And then I'd go on, and then if I was in sort of that flight mode or fight mode, people would feel that energy as well. And it's kind of like I couldn't get out of there fast enough, where, the meeting yesterday, to kind of not kick people out, but it went 45 minutes over. The conversation, we wrapped up, finished on time, but then the conversation carried on for like 45 minutes past the closing time, so and I was part of facilitating that atmosphere, with everyone that was there. And so obviously the energy that comes from turning up in that space is a lot more powerful than that disempowered state, It's
totally. It's being authentic with yourself. It's not abandoning yourself. This is a big thing, because we've been taught, most of us, not perhaps all of us, there's some people out there that have been kind of embraced to experience and feel their emotions and be okay with them. And then when they come up, they weren't abandoned or made wrong for feeling them or expressing them, whereas a lot of people were. So we just carry that cycle on. So when you're authentic with yourself and you actually honor yourself, that's what honoring yourself is not disassociating from your feelings. And I can tell you, like, a lot of the stuff I did in the past, and because when I was younger as well, it was I had to navigate some good gnarly shit. I had to get up in my head and like get resourceful in that way. And so I often disassociate from my feelings. And a lot of work I did for a long time through my main mentor, and who was amazing, and his work and principles underline and underpin everything.
Yeah.
But it was just extremely cognitive. It was extremely intellectual, which is great. And I loved it for that reason, because like that's where I was living in my head all the time. So it was awesome. But I tell you that with that came the disassociation further from the feeling body. And when I started doing some of this other work I've been doing over the last kind of 7-8 months, oh man, I was like beating the shit out of myself, because I was I'd come through the breakup, and I'd been really emasculated for a period of time, and I was like wounded, and all my shit had come up that I was blinded to. Like I was being confronted with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was in dorsal. If you like look at the polyvagal theory of the nervous system, I was in a place of like kind of apathy and just like just getting through, and just didn't have energy for anything. And I was like, why the fuck am I feeling this way? I shouldn't be feeling this way. I've done all this work. Like I know all this stuff, and intellectually I know all this stuff. And so then I was like, making myself even worse, because I'm beating myself up for having a normal human experience that any human would have in this situation. Because I could intellectualize and understand everything, but doesn't mean because you understand it that you're not going to still experience it. And so that was a massive learning for me, and to lessen self-judgment and criticizing self, and to actually acknowledge why things are happening for you. And that empathy and compassion for self when you're in those places is the fucking beginning. It's the gateway then to actually allow yourself to move up and out. So 100%. That was a really interesting experience and learning.
100%.
Relates back to your speaking.
Oh yeah. And there was another coach at the meeting last night, and he used the language about sort of standing in your honor. And I really like that as well, standing in your authenticity and your honor, and just being honest with yourself, and to me, I like that, you say not gaslighting yourself. And for me, it comes back to loving myself and accepting myself, and, totally. Not all those critical tapes, but just going, hey, as you said, I am where I am right now because of, I should be where I am right now because of what I've known or how I've chosen to be. And then I quite like the whole, I think it was a landmark forum or landmark kind of concept around trying on a different jacket or trying on a different suit or a different way of being, because then when I get to that place of being honest with myself and kind of going, well, actually, I should be feeling this right now because that's kind of, I'm out of my depth, or I'm feeling anxious, or, I am going to public speak. Oh, wow. Like, that's just natural and it's normal and that's okay. Actually, I'm going to now try on, now that I acknowledge that, I'm actually going to try on being powerful and being authentic and being present, and actually trying that sort of way of being on. It's really freeing. And then I think it creates massive opportunities to actually be multiple different ways. And that comes back to that be to have. It is actually choice, now that I know how, I'm feeling this sort of stuff, but actually how do I want to be right now? Or how do I want to be in my family? How do I want to be at work? How do I want to be on the sports field? How do I want to be in this, speaking engagement coming up? Yes, I feel the fear, I feel the emotion, and it's okay and safe to do that and work through that process. But now actually, who do I want to be and how do I want to, what do I want to create? It's a really powerful,
so this is a really interesting piece you bring up. So it's reframing it. And here's the thing too. If you're burying and trying to repress or resist what is being experienced. Right. It's fucking hard to then reframe authentically. Because you've still got that piece that's running the show underneath. So that's what most people are doing. They're like, they've tried to bury. Oh, I shouldn't be feeling that. It's not there. Oh, hang on, I'm powerful. I'm this, I'm that. Da da da. And it's like, but you're still fucking buying into and experiencing.
It's like that iceberg thing, where the tip of the iceberg's sticking out of the water, but underneath, like 90% of the iceberg's underneath.
And so, like, as long as you haven't dealt with that and acknowledged it and allowed it, and pulled it out and gone, hey, okay, I'm going to feel into that and expand the nervous system to handle it.
Yeah.
then when you try and reframe and repackage, I'm powerful and I'm this, you fucking don't believe it. And this is what most people are doing. Because you're still buying into the very thing you haven't dealt with that you've been repressing and keeping like in your body and your nervous system.
100%.
Yeah. So that's a really important point. That.
Have you got any scenarios where that you can think of that come to mind in the sort of sports realm or gym or working out kind of environment where you can apply that kind of thinking? Because I think for a lot of guys, often they're looking for that extra, and women, that extra competitive edge or ability to put gains on or whatever it might be. And sometimes, as we've spoken about, it's not necessarily a physical thing. It's like an inner piece of inner work. It's a combination of both, right?
Yeah, there's straight away comes to mind because I love the UFC and Israel Adesanya. I just saw he's released an interview based on the loss of his fight he's just had to goodness, I can't remember who it was to, but that American dude who's kind of sounds like a hillbilly. He's got he's a very polarizing character because he just comes out with all sorts of shit. But Israel just didn't look very good at all. He got smashed up, but he's gone to some therapy and he's kind of talked about what happened with that and expressed it.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that interview and so forth yet, but I use him as an example because he also lost a little while ago to a guy, Alex Pereira, who had beaten him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it was like, his bane. And I remember the first time he lost before he had his rematch. And I won some good money on this too. And the reason I did, and the reason I bet on him, and this is linking into what you've just brought up, is that I watched his afterwards, after he lost, he owned the fuck out of losing. And he just fessed up and he said, this is what happened. And what he did, whereas a lot of other fighters I've seen that are still buying into the pride and I shouldn't have lost, and their super ego gets in there, and it's like, I'm good enough. And I can feel it, I can smell it when someone's being inauthentic and they're not being honest with themselves, and they're trying to overinflate themselves, and it's not coming from a grounded place. When they do that, and this is similar to what we're just talking about, they just get fucked up again. And one really good one to point out there was Ronda Rousey, who she broke a lot of records, and she was like one of the first major woman superstars that put the UFC on the map for women fighters. But her pride got too big for her, and she had this persona. She'd come out and she'd be looking all and I remember it was Misha Tate, or I can't remember who it was. They smacked around, man, and you could just see. But the way she took that loss, she'd sulked. She couldn't own it. She just threw a little temper tantrum, and just got even more egotistical. And then when she came back to fight again, she had overinflated herself to try and patch up and fill this massive void that she had. You can
understand that's a technique, right? You're talking about in your head, you just try and develop that mindset where you just and so I watched that and I was like, she got humbled again. She got fucking really humbled again. I was like, man, you actually deserved that. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, but she because she was not being authentic, the universe and her higher mind attracted that humbling circumstance again to teach her that fucking lesson that she didn't get the first time, and she still didn't get it. And in the end, she ended up retiring because she couldn't come to terms and come to grips with herself and get connected enough to herself to own that shit. Which if she had have done that and just sat in that and felt it, I'm sure she felt some pain and she felt the loss, but if she had really gone in and owned all that, man, she could have been amazing if she got authentic with herself, but she didn't. And that's the difference between Israel when he lost the fight that I placed the bet on afterwards. When he lost that fight, he went in, man, he owned it. And when I was watching his interviews, he's like, you could see that man had changed. Like he had taken that loss, that dark night of the soul that cracked him open, wrecked him, and he went into that pain. And he's like, I'm going to use this. And I could hear it. I could feel it off him. It's an energy. And you could just see. And he applied himself so much deeper than I'd seen him before, whereas he'd been kind of doing really well. It wasn't until he got that loss, he got really tested. And then because he did that, he showed up, man, and he smashed it and he did it. And by the looks of what I've seen in the glimpses this
from the after the fight, this post-fight interviews. It looks like he's done the same this time. He's gone in, he's owned it, he's been authentic, and he's going to grow from it because he's like leant into the pain instead of avoiding it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I can think of another couple of fighters that may have done the same thing where they've tried to create a scenario after a loss and haven't been able to own it. I can think of 2 or 3 that come to mind. Interesting. So
it's like for everything, man. Like just quickly while I'm on this, because I've got this.
No, it's good.
It's a good conversation. I just shared with you, I'm going to start doing these group containers, and I'm going to start doing this and stretching myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, as I do this, it's just the point of the matter is you've got to just stay authentic. And if you stay authentic and you own, hey, this is what I'm doing for the first time. Oh, I could have done this better. Oh, I learned from this.
Yeah.
And you're not too ashamed or too proud to own
accept
what's going on and
critical feedback and tests and all that. That's the big one for me. To discern it, is to
discern it, be discerning with it, but be also really authentic and honest with yourself. That if there's something there for you to grab hold of that and use it.
Yeah, nice.
And then when you're not afraid to like go, yeah, fuck, I did this. Yeah, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Then you keep your power. It's when you try and cover that shit up and you have a charge on it, you lose your power. You lose it.
Definitely. And people can see it. Like, One of my ones that I've been acutely aware of is being triggered by criticism. And I know why, and we've done some work on that, obviously, as a child growing up. There's quite a bit of sort of criticism around, but I've realized now, one, how powerful that is, and how, as a result, the pros of that is that how powerful I am now in my own space, in my workspace, and the way I show up, and my determination, my focus, and my staunchness on my views, all linked to that side of things. The con part of it was my inability to know how to deal with that until recently, so I'd get a bit of criticism, I'd go into defensive mode. And if you've ever seen someone in defensive mode, then
I've been there many times myself.
Just keeps coming because the other person's kind of like, oh, sweet, I got a niggle here. And they just keep smashing it on,
I'm in. I've
And so now I've really learned just to take a breath, have poise, and just listen. I think listen to it, and obviously if it's if there's stuff that's unfounded or it gets personal, obviously being aware of personal boundaries, of course. But just listening, and then also giving myself time to respond, which is really, really interesting for me. I'm not necessarily someone that thinks really fast on their feet. Some people just come up with answers, bang, 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 I sort of process stuff a little bit more. You can tell that by the way I talk, right? So if I'm getting hammered with criticism, sometimes I just have to say, look, thanks for, very much for sharing that. And I take it on board. Give me some time to think about it and work through it, and I can respond or come back to you with an email or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
And it's a powerful position as opposed to just sort of saying stuff off the cuff that, kind of doesn't make sense and also looks bad anyway,
Yeah.
So
it's because you're balls deep in your shit at that point in time.
Yeah.
It's not to say that you or I aren't going to do that again sometime. It's a practice to.
Yeah.
There's not. I'm just trying to think of the last time I did that actually, because I've been in the space for a long time. I'm pretty open about talking and dealing with anything that comes up for me. I kind of don't care, and the reason why is that when you strip it all back, we're all the same. We're all the same, just packaged differently with the same shit. And so when you kind of when you realize that and you truly embody that and understand it, it's like, well, what does it matter then? People are going to judge you, and people are going to have. But the reason they're judging is they've got their shadows they haven't dealt with, and that's why they're looking at it this way, because they can't get to that depth of themselves. Yeah. So like I like to be a space, a light where I can take people to those authentic conversations because I'm willing to go there. So it creates a safe space for them to get to that level. And so you become like a vortex or a light to allow people to arrive there because you can show up there.
Yeah.
And so when you come from that philosophy of we're just souls, we're souls having a human experience in a meat suit, and we're here to grow and evolve. And that's the only thing we're here to really do. Like, you don't have to, but that's what I believe we're here to do. Then what does it matter?
Oh yeah. And in that, that I'm a big believer in that as well, that life is a journey and it's about the journey, not necessarily the destination. And what I mean by that, of course, the destination is important because that's the whole be, do, have, and that alone sets up a destination to aim for. But it's about the journey of getting there. And I really learned that a lot, maybe 5 years ago, really sort of hit home. And it's kind of like, well, yes, I want to, go there, but it's not always necessarily a straight line too, in my opinion. It's you're sort of up and down and roundabouts, and things happen and challenges happen and tests happen. And obviously, there's a certain element of character, as you just spoke about with some of the UFC fighters there, that, a person, well, I'm talking from me, I have to develop in order to be who I want to be. Do you know what I mean? And if I haven't got that right now, there'll be certain tests or opportunities to come up to learn that lesson to get to that point.
Totally. He's someone I'd actually like to interview one day. Actually, I'd like to have a chat with him. He really impressed me just because of his mentality. It was like I hadn't seen too many people kind of own the stuff in that way, and I really when I saw it, I really valued it. I was like, that guy's, he's got the willingness to be introspective and objective and look at himself, and that there to me is one of the most crucial traits that we've got to have to allow ourselves to grow and evolve to our full capacity, because if we can't, then we're just continually, as I said before, gaslighting ourselves and keeping ourselves in the same loop, same pattern. And again, we all have it, and we all have different levels. I'm no different. You're no different. And this is the other thing too. I think it's really important. It doesn't matter how much you know or understand. Because I've had so many people come to me, Mike, why are you having this challenge? You had a breakup. Why did you have a breakup? You should know. You help people with this stuff. It's like, fuck, I'm a fucking human being. And I know all this and I can assist others, but I still have my own experiences. If I didn't and I wasn't human, and if I was like here with no challenge, what would be the fucking point?
Well, and I personally think that's why society is so screwed at times, is because we put people on a pedestal and look for these idols, and then something happens and we go, oh, it's just like, I don't.
They're supposed to be a one-sided human. They're supposed to. Their shit's not supposed to smell. Oh, they're supposed to be. Yeah, totally.
I love watching the NRL, which is Australian, for those listening, Australian National Rugby League. Used to play it and just love the game. And the level of scrutiny that these players get put under is crazy. Like, and yes, people go, oh, they paid the big money and all that. And I get that. But I mean, someone gets caught drunk or something, obviously I get breaking the law. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, I don't know, just some weird thing that they might have done drunk or whatever, fallen over on the sidewalk or accidentally smashed a bottle on the road or whatever it is. They just get ripped to pieces, and it's just like, I mean, they're human beings.
Totally, but unfortunately, so what you said, and they get paid the big money, but that is the price they pay. So
true.
It's a really interesting piece. This, because they're there to entertain the masses. Where the masses are, where they operate, is in fantasies and nightmares. They operate in these like idealisms that are one-sided, that aren't fucking real. And so and then the media know this, and they love playing into drama and bullshit because it feeds it, and that feeds their revenue. And so you've got this big beast that kind of keeps going around, that plays on these polarities, and then picks on these people because, it's something that's going to create a story, that's going to create revenue. And, if you look at it, go,
my point is, though, is like what we're talking about here, I find is so empowering, because then it starts, like, the veil starts to get lifted on all this other sort of stuff. And you mentioned fantasy. As soon as you start looking in and working on this sort of stuff and working through these tests, the more and more I realize that far out, actually, that is kind of just like a fantasy realm. It's not real life. It's like a game, man. Or like a video game playing out.
Fucking taught these fantasies from childhood with bloody stories, fairy tales. Like Prince Charming coming to rescue the little girl, and he's going to do this and he's going to do that, and
he's perfect.
He's perfect, and he looks like this, and he just does all nice things, and there's going to be no arguments or disagreements, and so all these fantasies, these lopsided fucking viewpoints of what life's like, built from a young age, and then you get into a relationship with someone, you're like, it's not supposed to be like this, you know.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to do that, or
Yeah. Yeah, or he's not doing that.
and then it's like, oh no, that's it. I want out of this relationship. I
Yeah.
can't believe it. You know, it's all his fault. No, you co-created that fucking thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But that's a whole
100%.
nother
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And
no,
I think
hands up, I own that. Just people that know me,
yeah,
you know, I own that in all
yeah,
of
man, we all
my
do.
past relationships.
Yeah, yeah. Again,
Yeah.
I've been there as
Mm.
well, done the
Yeah.
same thing, you know.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the NRL players or the any football player, celebrity, entertainer,
Mm.
they're going to only go as high as they will based on their ability to handle praise and reprimand, both sides, or abandonment and engulfment.
Yeah.
And if they can't stabilize their emotions,
Yeah.
they're only going to go to that height that they can willing to handle it. Otherwise, they're going to keep themselves stuck down in that place as a safety mechanism because they can't handle that. And so it's a direct correlation energetically about what you'll end up manifesting and having based on your ability to govern and manage your emotions and handle the duality of both abandonment and engulfment, or praise and reprimand, however you want to frame it, positives, negatives.
Oh, you see that all the time. You often, there's conversations about, this player's come into their maturity, they're a bit older now, they've been through some big games, they know how to handle big game management and media. And I think one of the really big ones is that I see those guys grappling with is actually, how do they handle the media? How do they handle criticism?
Yeah.
You know, and I think the good coaches, in my opinion, and I haven't been on the inner workings, but from what I can see, they talk a bit about man managers or people managers, woman managers, you know, and that a good coach is actually really good at that part of it. And I think it's a lot of this work is about, hey, look, just being balanced, stable, shut out all the noise and just keep that space and just enjoy what you're doing, the best you can.
Yeah.
Hey, one last piece before we wrap up is, we talk about this, and then when it comes to our children, how do we help our kids navigate through what we just spoke about, like in terms of being comfortable with themselves, identifying that they've got, something going on. It's okay to feel that way. And,
by allowing them to express their emotions and do all that.
Yeah, as what's a practical example though? Because it's easy to say that, but give us an example.
For a start, it's what do kids do? I mean, they model what they're demonstrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got the epigenetics, you've got the generational trauma and perceptions that are encoded through that they've got to deal with.
Yeah.
Then they've also got the parents that they're watching and being modeled by, not just what they're saying, but what they're modeling. So if you can demonstrate and show that and go through and feel your stuff and express that and show that, and that it's okay to do that, then you're showing them it's okay. But also when they experience emotions, especially when they're young, because they don't have the cognitive power to understand, they're just feeling everything and they're getting into their stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you start telling them, and, this is what happened, especially to our generation and the generation before, because they just didn't have the awareness. But it's like, you hear these mantras of children shouldn't be heard, they should be seen and not heard, whatever it is. Or don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about. If you're going to keep making that noise, you can go to your room. I don't want to see you. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, all these attachments are created that it's not safe to express myself. It's not safe to feel. I can't have these emotions. And so then the kids self-abandon. They abandon themselves in order to stay, they say, love, to stay in the tribe. And that's where we learn all these things that we do to ourselves later in life.
Wow.
So if you can then stay and hold space for them, it's fucking massive.
Yeah.
So if you can hold space for them when they're losing their shit and let them get it all out, let them feel it. And then the biggest thing that kids need is to know they're loved no matter what. That to me, like fundamentally is the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing for my son since he was like 1, or I don't know what age I started, but I started giving him affirmations at night. And one of the main ones is now, and it's quite cool because when I start it with him, he goes, "Yeah, Dad, I know." And I'll start it and I'll say, he goes, "No matter what I've done or not done, I'm worthy of love. I know." And I said, and he goes, "And Mummy and Daddy will love me always, no matter what."
Yeah.
And I hear him say that. And he's like, "Oh, shut up, Dad." but that's in his subconscious now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, it's the kids need to know they're loved, even if
Yeah.
you've gone through a separation or whatever's happened.
Mm.
And then if they do have a rupture and they do lose it, and you have a rupture and you lose it at them,
Yeah.
it's so important to go repair with them properly and
Right.
then reconnect with them and say, hey,
Yeah.
look, sorry, daddy lost his shit earlier too, because daddy's human. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to lose my
Yeah.
shit at you. I'm sorry if it upset you. I shouldn't
Yeah.
have yelled or whatever. I love you. And I
Yeah.
want to let you know that I'm still here for you, and
Yeah.
I accept you, love you, and is
Yeah.
there anything you need from me? And so
Yeah. 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 It's
those
good.
their repairing is like
Yeah.
crucial. Whereas
Yeah.
often that didn't happen, so they don't
No.
get
No.
taught. They don't get taught when they have a rupture, which is going to happen
Yeah.
themselves or with
Yeah.
someone, how to repair. And so that's one of the really important aspects as well.
That's a huge piece. That's a huge piece.
It's like a
And
whole
and
massive
that.
conversation. This one too.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's
yeah. I will pick this one up again, but I think just for me, I'm just thinking about that the repair piece versus the management piece. So I've found that it's quite easy now to hold space, even though like my trigger
yeah,
was that I couldn't handle my kids' emotions and I would want them to go to their room. I used to say to my daughter, look, if you're going to be like that, just go to your room, sort of thing. It's because of my inability to be present and comfortable and
and handle
actually
a woman
handle
losing her
that.
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now I just pick her up and give her a cuddle and say, what's going on, love? And
That
it's
dude,
okay. And
like
just,
night and
just
day.
absolutely love her. And I can be comfortable in that space.
How does that feel for you? Like as a
Oh, it's just
man, as a
amazing.
dad, how does it feel for you to be able to handle that and be there for your daughter
Oh,
now?
just my relationship with her has changed forever. It'll never
Yeah,
be the same in a good way,
yeah,
like,
it's awesome,
and she knows that
beautiful.
dad is there for her, and no matter what she's, as you just said, no matter what you do or don't do or feeling emotionally or whatever, I'm there for you and I love you, and I hold you
Yeah,
and look after and so that
man,
part's
that's
just
awesome.
so good, man. Like I'm feeling a
Yeah,
bit emotional thinking
yeah,
about it,
so am I.
and yeah,
That's awesome. This is real talk.
yeah,
This is real
yeah,
stuff. And
yeah.
do you know what's beautiful about that is
Mm,
you're
mm,
her attachment to men. So you're
mm,
demonstrating what she's going to expect to have in a man and a potential partner. And what's beautiful,
mm,
man,
mm,
and this is getting me teary.
mm,
It's beautiful because
mm.
you're showing her that she deserves to be loved by a man, and
Yeah, yeah,
that she's okay to express herself, and she'll attract a partner
yeah.
that
Nice.
matches what her dad demonstrated, because that's what we do.
Awesome. And
Yeah,
that's what I want for her. Like
yeah,
one thing, she's going to be her own woman, but I want her to be with someone that'll love her and respect her for who
yeah,
she is. And if I can help model that to her, then
yeah. Well, by
most of my
demonstrating
job's
that and
done.
doing
You
that,
know.
that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Awesome.
awesome, man. Yeah, that's so Oh, it's so
Mm,
pleasing for me to hear that, and just to,
mm, mm,
acknowledge
mm.
and have seen your growth again with all the work that's been done, and just
Yeah, yeah,
how all that stuff has started to shift, and all those
yeah,
dynamics and the
yeah,
fruits of it all. So
yeah.
it all starts with us. Like it all
Oh,
starts with us.
100%.
You
Yeah,
want to shift things, you got to go look in the fucking mirror. It's the
yeah,
hardest place to look, but that's where you
yeah,
got to go look. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, and in
So
personal experience, for guys that are listening, and girls, obviously, that the easiest work, well, sometimes the most confronting work is around family, and mum and dad stuff, but also the kids stuff. But it's also the easiest because it's there every day. And what I
mm,
mean by that, like it was just a matter of weeks for me to implement and strengthen that muscle or that way of being with my daughter. It didn't take very long. As soon as I
yeah,
got the awareness around what the hell was going on and
yeah,
why I was feeling the way I was feeling, it was pretty quick, rapid change,
yeah,
and extremely powerful. I like that piece coming back, that piece about repairing. That's
mm,
something I'm working on at the moment. And to be honest with you now, I used to be quite impatient with the kids, but it's completely changed now because of and I didn't have the ability um, to deal with that emotional stuff. So I suppose if you say sort of fight or flight mode, I'd just get triggered and get upset and get grumpy,
mm,
and with them, and then that was not healthy for them. Now it's very much, if that ever happens, it's because I'm tired or I might be emotional about something else. It's not that often, but when it does, remembering to go back and repair and apologize, and say, sorry, look, I was out of line. I am human and all that sort of stuff. I'm still working through that piece at the moment.
Yeah.
But the point you made there was really important, because I think that teaches them how to repair. For me, that part is like so powerful. So not only would, for example, using my daughter's, situation, look for a man that is going to love her for who she is and accept her for who she is, and be honest about that, and be able to deal, with her, no matter where she's at. But also, she has the ability where she's not too proud to go back and repair, and be humble enough to, or present enough to actually be able to have that conversation. So many.
Totally.
It's quite a pride ego thing to be able to push through.
Needing to try and feel safe, because it was never safe to go do that, and they never got shown, so they didn't have.
Yeah.
Here's the thing too: if you were never demonstrated that, then you don't have the awareness, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So you just stay in the pattern and program that you got shown and know.
Yeah.
And so this is where most of us operate from, because it's in the subconscious, and it runs the show. So, again, this is why if you want to shift your family and you want to shift your lineage and you want to deal with the generational trauma that's been handed down, that none of us could help, it just is the way that it is.
Yeah.
Well, then you can be the one to stand up and be accountable and go, fuck, I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to do this for my lineage.
Yeah.
But it starts with you first having the awareness to look in the mirror and going there.
Yeah.
And then embodying and demonstrating those new beliefs, those new behaviors, so that they're actually learning it from a very young age.
Yeah, by consistently turning up, tying it back into this original conversation, turning up. Yeah. Being consistent, and there's going
to be times where you're going to fuck up. And there's times still that I fuck up, and it's like acknowledging and going. That's also okay, and that's part of being human, and that's part of being authentic.
Yeah.
But again, you just use it for growth. You use it for evolution. Because when we don't, and we deny it, and we try and it just doesn't help us whatsoever. It just keeps running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was good conversation.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. For those listening, I'll add the S.O.A.P exercise, or we'll have the S.O.A.P exercise down below. As always, check out our other social channels down below. Check out our website. Join the club.
I just want to jump in there and say one more thing too. It's quite this also shows the importance of doing what you love and loving what you do, because even though I was feeling very tired and flat coming in here, once I start getting into this, I don't know if you can tell, my energy's come up. Yeah. But I love talking about this stuff. So when you do what you love, it's way easier to show up than it is if you're showing up for something you don't really like. And if you are constantly struggling to show up for whatever you're doing, then I'd be looking inward and just questioning whether it's really congruent and authentic to you to be doing what it is you are doing, and perhaps looking elsewhere.